In October of 1571, the fate of Christendom came down to 40,000 men in wooden ships, Erstau, and the prayers of millions more who would never see the battle. The Ottoman Empire had been winning for 100 years. Constantinople had fallen. Hungary was burning. The Sultan's generals were openly planning to stable their horses in St. Peter's Basilica. And the only man who believed Europe could still be saved was an elderly Dominican in Rome, praying a string of beads. This is the story of Lepanto, and it is the reason every Catholic man should know that the Rosary is not a decoration, it is a weapon. To understand Lepanto, you have to understand how close the Catholic world came to ending. By 1571, the Ottoman Empire controlled the entire eastern Mediterranean. They had taken Cyprus that summer, and when the Venetian commander Marcantonio Bragadin surrendered on promise of safe passage, the Ottomans flayed him alive and stuffed his skin with straw. This was the enemy, not a philosophical opponent, not a diplomatic rival. An empire that crucified Franciscans, enslaved Christian children by the 100,000 through the Dev Sherme, and intended Artpost openly, publicly, as a matter of state policy, Archverschwurst, the destruction of the Catholic Church. The nations of Europe could not unite against them. France was making side deals with the Sultan. The German princes were consumed with the Protestant revolt. Spain was stretched thin across an empire. Venice cared about trade. Into this broken continent stepped one man, Pope St. Pius V, a Dominican friar who had slept on straw as Pope, who wore his hair shirt under the white cassock, who fasted on bread and water while cardinals feasted, a man the Roman court found embarrassing worked, because he actually believed what the Church taught, and he did what no one thought possible. He built the Holy League, Spain, Venice, the Papal States, Genoa, Savoy, Tuscany, the Knights of Malta, nations that had been at each other's throats for decades. Pius V called them to one table, and by the sheer force of his holiness, Erzak, and the clarity of what was coming, Orsarts, they came. He named Don Juan of Austria to lead them, 24 years old, illegitimate half-brother of the King of Spain, a man who had never commanded a fleet. The Holy League assembled at Messina in September 1571, 206 galleys, 6 galleasses, floating fortresses the Ottomans had never seen before, roughly 40,000 soldiers and sailors. The Ottoman fleet waiting at the Gulf of Patras off the Greek coast was larger, 251 galleys, experienced commanders, the veteran terror of a century of victories. Before the fleet sailed, Pius III did something strange. He did not call for more cannon. He did not call for more men. He called for the Rosary. Every confraternity in Rome, every monastery in Italy, every parish church from Sicily to the Netherlands. The Pope ordered a Rosary campaign across Christendom. Ordinary Catholics on their knees in the hours the fleet would fight. They did not know the day. They did not know the hour. They prayed anyway. October 7th, 1571, Sunday morning, the Gulf of Patras. The two fleets met. Ottoman commander Ali Pasha at the center, Don Juan at the center of the Christian line. The soldiers on the Christian decks had received the Eucharist at dawn. A crucifix was raised on every flagship. The wind had been blowing against the Holy League all morning, Arzariut, into their faces, carrying smoke back at them, favoring the Turks. At the moment the first cannons fired, the wind shifted. It turned 180 degrees. It blew the Christian galleys forward. It blew the Ottoman gunsmoke back into Ottoman faces. Every sailor on both sides saw it. Veterans of 30 years at sea called it impossible. The battle that followed was 5 hours of the most savage close combat in naval history. The Venetian galleasses, firing from the front line, shattered the Ottoman formation before it could close. Spanish tercios, Bursar, the finest infantry in Europe, boarded and cleared Turkish decks, foot by bloody foot. By sundown, Ali Pasha was dead, his head raised on a pike on his own flagship. 117 Ottoman galleys captured, 50 sunk. Over 30,000 Ottoman dead. 12,000 Christian slaves rowing in chains were cut free. It was the first major defeat the Ottoman Navy had suffered in a century. Here is the part the history textbooks leave out. That same afternoon, in Rome, Pope St. Pius V was meeting with his treasurer. Hours before any messenger could possibly reach him, the Pope rose, walked to the window, and opened it. He turned to the cardinal in the room and said, "This is not a moment for business. Go and give thanks to God. Our fleet has won." Weeks later, when the news arrived overland, the date and hour of the victory matched the moment Pius V had known. The Pope established a new feast for the Universal Church. October 7th, he called it Our Lady of Victory. His successor renamed it Our Lady of the Rosary, to make clear for every generation after what had actually won that day. It was not the cannon, it was not Don Juan, it was not the wind, or rather, it was the wind, but it was the one who sent it. It was the Rosary. It was Our Lady, to whom the Rosary campaigns had been offered. It was, in the oldest and plainest Catholic understanding, a miracle. So what does this have to do with you? A man in 2026, in a country where the faith is mocked and the culture is hostile, with your own fights to win everything. Lepanto was not won in October. It was won in the months before by the old women in Milan and the farmers in Castile and the Dominican brothers in Rome who said their beads every day, not knowing if it mattered. The men on the ships fought the battle, but the weapon that turned the wind was held by the church on its knees. The Catholic tradition has always taught this. The Rosary is not a sentimental prayer. It is what Padre Pio called the weapon for these times. It is what Our Lady herself at Fatima told 3 children the world must pray, Ursur, daily, Ursur, or it would not be saved. If you are a Catholic man and you are not praying the Rosary daily, you are walking into a battle without your rifle. Start with 1 decade, build to 5. Offer it for your wife, your children, your parish, your country. Offer it for the next Lepanto, because make no mistake, it is coming. The enemy changes names, the war does not. The sanctum is the place where men relearn how to fight this way. Altar, arms, allegiance, subscribe, and the next video will be in your feed. Friday, the Forgotten Catholic Soldiers of 1776. And if you want the weekly Sanctum Dispatch, 1 reflection, 1 discipline, 1 action for the coming week. Raul. The link is in the description. Our Lady of the Rosary, pray for us. St. Michael, the Archangel, defend us in battle. Fight well, brothers.